Well, one form of entrepreneurship is being a service provider. Entrepreneurs find problems and solve them.
Once you're on the road of entrepreneurship and you've had successes and you've had failures, because it would be such a lie that somebody tells you that they never failed in entrepreneurship. I can tell you myself, when I got on this roadmap, I'm 40 years old. I just turned 40 a week ago. When I started on this roadmap, I'm an old man now, right? The first 30 years of my life, I did not succeed at much of anything except maybe playing tennis, which I was really good at. Other than that, it was failure after failure. I didn't have any dreams and goals. I didn't really aspire for much of anything. I maybe hoped that one day a family member would pass away and leave me a fortune. I did not have any desires. And then suddenly something woke up. And I think it all started with 2008, economy collapsing, and then me having to figure out, wait a second, I have children that I have to take care of, and okay, let's go, let's survive. But when I look at that process, the last 10 years of my life, once that switch turned on, there's no off. There's no more. And I've had a ton of failures, a ton of difficulties, a ton of issues, a ton of problems, and a ton of very threatening things to the survival of our businesses and things going on. And that's all part and parcel. But I still would never, ever, for the rest of the life in this body, would ever stoop doing this. And that's my take on it. So if any of you guys are watching this and you guys are thinking about really building your brand and going for the e-commerce world and trying to create a similar roadmap to what Ezra has built, to what I have built, which again comes from nothing. We don't have necessarily degrees explaining that we're supposed to be doing successful things here. That's not the way it is. But I can tell you that my number one advice, additionally to what Ezra said and what it really takes to be an entrepreneur, is that you guys work under somebody first. Would you agree to that, Ezra? I say, if you don't know, aside from being okay, you know what, just go and do a safe, steady, secure job and get a paycheck and be okay, because that doesn't really have any risk. You can literally, your biggest risk is losing your job and going out there and getting another one, right? And maybe you have to live on unemployment for a couple of weeks, which the government will help you. That's your biggest risk. In our case, I have 79 people that are gonna be out of a job, so many things that are built, and it's a much bigger risk that I have. But my advice to people that they're thinking, I don't think I have what it takes for entrepreneurship. I want to do it at some point, but I don't have the courage, the guts, the patience, the resilience. I don't have any of these things. Well, maybe your roadmap begins with finding an opportunity in an organization in which you get to discover whether you will have that long term so you can actually create something for yourself in the future. Would you say that that's another route?
I think that's a really wonderful route. And one way to think about it is, let's imagine that you take a job as a customer support person at a software as a service company, for example, and you learn about, e-commerce technology and advertising and copywriting and direct response. And you say, oh, I'm interested in advertising. And then you go take a bunch of courses on advertising and you learn how to do it, and you do it for free for a couple friends. Well, one form of entrepreneurship is being a service provider, saying, hey, I'm going to trade my time for money, but I'm not going to do it where I'm working for somebody else. I'm going to do it where I go get a client and I support them, and I do it on my own time, and I charge them $200 an hour, or I charge them per project basis. That's a form of entrepreneurship, in that you're taking control of your life. You're choosing when to spend your time working, and you're doing something of your own. You don't have to own a business to be an entrepreneur. And by the way, you can be an entrepreneur within an organization. Entrepreneurs find problems and solve them. You can have an entrepreneurial venture and spirit within an organization. You can say, I'm taking over this department. Here's the issues I see. Let's solve them. You can play the game of entrepreneurship from any level. And I think it's a great idea. I tell all entrepreneurs, have a side hustle that pays for your bills. Don't have to have your venture support you, because then it's not free, because then there's pressure on it and there's scarcity on it, and you don't have the freedom to reinvest everything back into it. Keep a side job 20 hours a week that pays your bills, and let your venture have the freedom of no pressure to support you. Much better strategy than quitting everything and just putting all the pressure on the venture, I think, from a balance standpoint. And then one thing else I'll say is this idea that, oh, one day you make it, and you just touched on this, one day you make it and now you don't have the stress and pressure of entrepreneurship. No, as you grow, the pressure gets bigger, because your overhead, your salary overhead, your insurance overhead, your advertising overhead, your inventory, the overhead, your lifestyle tends to grow with how much money you make. Hey, maybe when you weren't making any money, you and your wife were living on 75 grand a year, but now that you're making $1 million a year, you guys live on 200K a year, because you're buying fancier stuff and you're shopping more and you're taking trips and you're, put the kid in private school. Like your overhead grows. And so as your overhead grows, you have to continue to produce at the same level or higher to keep that. So it's like the pressure stays. And the pressure is a beautiful thing because it motivates you. And it doesn't mean that you can't secure yourself and set up a 401k and put money away for savings and invest, own your home outright and pay your mortgage off and invest in real estate and invest in stocks. And it doesn't mean you can't have a, financial liquidity and financial security such that if everything did melt down, you were okay. But this idea that, hey, one day entrepreneurship isn't an intense game to play is not accurate.
Absolutely. And when you focus on doing it like that, having a combination of having your work that pays for your bills and creating on your future, that takes away all the stress and you can continue creating on it, because it is important as an entrepreneur, your mind needs to be open for creativity and just move forward.